Hey everybody, happy Torch Thursday on the Beading Dream stream. I do not know why I decided to do a dramatic gesture there, but apparently that's how I am tonight with the dramatic gesturing. We're going to try not to dramatically gesture with the torch because that usually leads to bad things happening, but...
Get it out of your system now.
Right, exactly. I did, one of my dear friends, favorite clients, favorite students had, I think she may have gotten over it by now, but had an unfortunate habit of just, you know, gesturing wildly with her torch. And it was like, no, calm it down. So, welcome to Torch Thursday. This is part 2 of the stamped Sawn and Soldered Pendant. And Amy, at this point, it looks like my viewer counts are all off because right now, apparently I only have 2 people watching cross-platform and I have at least 3 people talking, so that mathematics doesn't really work. So I have no idea who's watching where, but welcome to everybody, and I hope everyone's doing great wherever you are out in the wilds of the internet this evening. So tonight is part 2 of the stamped Sawn and Soldered Pendant. So y'all, if anybody tuned in last night, you saw me make all of the parts for that pendant, so now we're going to go ahead and solder them together. Also, for anybody who was keeping up with the saga of the lost earring, I did find the earring. You can possibly tell by the bent post that it was on the floor, and yes, I did in fact step on it, but I found it, and I did not have to extricate it from my flesh, so, you know, there you go. I mean, once again, Amy, I don't really see anyone on my end, so I'm gonna assume you have friends, and we're gonna go from there. So this is one thing that I was gonna do last night, which is just take, so my little casting that I have here is, and sorry, my lights and exposure today have been really obnoxious with my soldering board. So it was an earring, obviously, once again. I absolutely stepped on it, but that's okay. So I'm gonna whack the post off. And yes, Heather has absolutely been thinking that it was Saturday all day today. I told her that, you know, hopefully she would be pleasantly surprised by realizing that she doesn't have to work until 10:30 tonight, like on a normal Saturday. But anyway, I'm just going to take a second and I'm going to cut the post off this earring and I'm going to file it down. Hey, now my viewer count is showing me more people. Hi people, I don't know if you just showed up or if my viewer counting software just decided to tell me you were here, but either way, welcome. So happy to have you here on the Beading Dreams stream. And again, this is what we're doing tonight. This is part 2 of our stamped Sawn and Soldered Pendant. So I am replicating my sample mostly in this tutorial, but the techniques that I'm doing here you can really apply to any shape, any design, anything that you really, you know, want to do. And that of course is always sort of my goal, if I have the option, is to just show you guys things that you can use and apply to lots of different kinds of projects. I think, so my mother's upstairs neighbor used to be the editor of Art Jewelry Magazine, back when Art Jewelry Magazine was actually a thing. And I think one of the most interesting things one of the things that I found most interesting about that publication is at one point they did a survey, and one of the questions in the survey was, do you do the projects in the magazine 100% as written? And it was something like only 30% of the respondents. Bah! Sharon was in Honolulu! Jelly. Officially Jelly right here.
What?
Yep.
Sharon?
Yeah. She's, traveling back. Or she was traveling back from Honolulu last night. Yeah, definitely Jelly. Super jealous of the Honolulu. You told me she was, oh my gosh, this is funny, actually, because Heather texted me, Sharon, when you were in here while I was on vacation, and she texted me something like, Sharon Hammer was in today, and she was absolutely awful.
I said she was a jerk.
She was a jerk. There you go. And I, like, my brain clicked off at that point, and I'm like, oh my god, what in the world could possibly have happened to make Sharon be a jerk at Beading Dreams? And then I read the rest of the text, which said, she's going to Hawaii. I was like, oh! Yes, that kind of jerk. The kind of jerk who goes to a tropical paradise and doesn't take her bead store buddies with her. So, I mean, yeah, I and then at that point, I was, I was on board with Heather's evaluation of the situation, but
we still love you.
But we still love you, Sharon. And, yes, and so they sang for several events for the 80th anniversary of Pearl Harbor. That's awesome. Yes, interestingly enough, so Pearl Harbor Day was Tuesday, I believe. Which is my parents' anniversary. My parents are no longer married. They've not been married for most of my life, but they got married on Pearl Harbor Day specifically so that my father would be able to remember their anniversary. And yes, that is hysterical laughter you hear from everyone who is behind the streaming wall. Yep. So anyway, going on with the project. Okay, so this is a part 2 of a 2-part project. So let's start with a little bit of a recap. Like, previously on the Beading Dreams stream, we cut out, using a jeweler's saw, our back plate. Okay, so the base of our pendant, which I'm doing a Hamsa hand, so my Hamsa base in brass. We cut out our design element. For me, that's going to be the eye. Like I said, I'm replicating this one. I'm not doing anything new and original here. So that's the eye component that you see there in sterling silver. I cut it out with a saw and I textured it. We bent some wire. So we bent our 3 little accent wires that are going to go on the fingers of our Hamsa, and then we bent all the little spirally bits as well. Since I lost my little earring that was going to be my casting and just what I just did was I filed off the back of it, so that's my little casting. I'm going to solder that on the bottom of my Hamsa. And then new for today, I do have a 6mm bezel cup and a 6mm tire eye cabochon. And like I said, I'm sorry, I don't know what exactly my exposure is doing, but it's a little dark, but then it's a little bright, and yeah, I got nothing for y'all tonight. I'm sorry. As far as tools go, you're gonna need all your soldering tools, including your torch, your soldering surface, your flux, pickle in a pickle pot. That's off camera. I will talk about what that is and what it does when it's time to do it. Since we are using bronze, and sorry, this is bronze, not brass. I said brass, that's my bad. Bronze tonight. We are going to need super pickle as well. That's going to be hydrogen peroxide and white vinegar. You're going to need easy solder to put all of this together. You're going to need a hole punch or a drill. Steel wool would not be a bad idea. Find steel wool, possibly sandpaper, and of course having your tools on hand, your hand tools, a round nose pliers, chain nose pliers, wire cutters, never a bad idea, and just all your fabrication tools, and of course tweezers for picking up hot things. So before I start with the torching and the hotness, let's talk for just a minute about soldering safety, and that is of course encompassed by my very brief and slapdash 5-point soldering safety lecture. Of course, I am not credentialed anything as far as safety or anything else goes, really, so I'm just some rando on the internet. There's really no reason you should listen to me, but I have been teaching this for a number of years, and there are a bunch of things that keep coming up when I'm teaching as far as staying safe in a community workspace and staying safe at home. So number 1, try to keep 6 to 8 inches of clear space between your flame and everything else in your world while you're soldering. No, I'm not doing that. You will notice that I have cameras, lights, one of which is with, covered with a tissue. So super smart right here. But seriously, 6 to 8 inches of clear space around your flame at all times. That is going to massively reduce the chances that you're accidentally going to set something on fire. Nothing flammable, nothing meltable within that 6 to 8 inch radius. Number 2, once you've had your flame going, from that point forward, make sure you always assume that everything in your work area is hot enough to burn you, because a lot of it is. That's where your tweezers come in. Use those to pick up things that might potentially be hot. Number 3, ventilation is important. What is going on? There's just hysterical laughter coming from behind me, and I have no idea what's going on.
Nothing, really.
Then they don't want to share, which just makes me more nervous.
Private.
Oh goodness, I'm a little scared, but I'm just gonna keep going. Yeah, okay.
With your fire.
Yeah. Okay, so where was I? Right. If you find yourself coughing, hacking, wheezing, or hallucinating hysterical laughter after you've been soldering, it's entirely possible that you need to reevaluate your ventilation situation. You can always go by a window. You can always go outside. Not everybody has the same level of lung sensitivity. I'm fine in relatively open space. That's not true for everyone, so just listen to your body. There are chemicals involved here, so if your body says no, chemicals bad, you need to do something to mitigate that, to make your soldering experience better for your body. Number 4, if you're not actively soldering with your torch, turn it off. These torches are if you're using a small butane torch like I am, the torches are very easy to ignite. They're very easy to extinguish. There's no reason to leave your torch burning when you're not using it. So if you're not using it, turn it off. And of course, number 5, know where your fire extinguisher is. If you're in a workspace at home, you should have one within arm's reach. If you're in a community workspace, make sure you know where the fire extinguisher is. And if you're in a community workspace, of course, please make sure you comply with all written and oral instructions, because I promise anybody who's running a community workspace just wants to keep everybody safe. So now that I've disseminated my 5-point soldering safety lecture, let's go ahead and get to the fire part. Alright, so I've got my back piece, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to flux my back piece. So flux is a chemical, and my flux is borax based. I use Handy Flux, which is a paste flux, because I like the way that it applies. It's also very easy to control the consistency of Handy Flux just by thinning it out with water, so super easy. What flux does is it keeps your metal from oxidizing or slows down the oxidation process of your metal so that your solder can flow. So once your metal has oxidized or turned black, now you've got a barrier on there through which your solder cannot flow, and that just makes everything harder / impossible. So I have fluxed my back piece. I'm going to go ahead and flux my accent piece, and I'm going to take my bezel cup. I'm going to flux that. I'm going to skip fluxing my wires just because they are so very small that I think it's not going to be a fruitful endeavor for me. But I am also going to flux my little casting. That's my earring that I filed the back off of. So easy solder. I'm going to put this whole thing together with easy solder. The reason that I can get away with that is because it's all flat. So gravity is working in my favor. This is not always the case. Okay, so when you're putting things together, there are different melting points of solder. They call them different densities. Okay, so there's hard, medium, easy, and extra easy. So the way that it typically works when you're putting something together is you start with hard, and then you step down and down and down as you continue with your joints. The reason for that is, especially if you're doing joints that are counter to gravity, that way you never have to get your metal hot enough that you're going to blow your initial joints and they're going to, reflow and fall apart. If you're doing something where gravity is working with you instead of against you, you can totally punt all of that stuff out the window, and you can use all the same melting point of solder. And in this case, we're going to use easy because it is second, only to extra easy as far as ease of getting it to flow. And for anybody who's either watched the Beading Dream stream a lot or uses one of these Blazer butane torches, you know that there is definitely a size limitation that these little butane torches have. I love them. I adore my Blazer. It legitimately is pretty much the only torch that I use. I don't have a full-size acetylene or propane torch, but it definitely requires a little bit of finagling in order to accommodate the fact that the flame's just not that big. And so sometimes that means using thinner metal, sometimes that means using less metal, sometimes it means using 2 torches, and sometimes that means using a lower melting point of solder. That's what we're going with here. So I've got easy solder. I'm going to start by sweating solder onto all of my components. All right, so I've got my back piece, that's fluxed, that's going to go, and that's going to set aside for a minute. And I've got my my eyepiece, that's fluxed, that's gonna go set aside for a minute as well. I've got my casting, I've got my bezel cup, and then I'm gonna have my pieces of wire that I shaped on Wednesday. And I want to make, okay, so these are all fairly symmetrical. I want to make sure, because these little spirals that I made and I want to be in opposition, so I need to make sure that I have them in opposition when I'm sweating the flux onto them, or sweating the solder onto them, and same with these little spirals. See, like that's wrong. That's right. Okay, so now it's time to sweat some solder. So I'm going to grab my easy solder and I'm going to cut, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All right, I'm going to cut a dozen pieces of this. And I'm not cutting them very large. I am cutting them what would be considered large for most soldering projects. So I'm cutting them about 1/8 of an inch. Realize watching me cutting solder is probably the most interesting thing happening to all of you all tonight. 3, 6, 7 is definitely the most interesting thing happening to me tonight. That's not true. I actually get to solder metal together. That's pretty exciting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 3 more. 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I am singing, but that's not a drink. It's only a drink if Heather sings. No, stop with the Christmas singing. No Christmas sing. Okay, Christmas singing has to be there has to be something punitive.
Only Allison drinks for that? We're gonna get tired.
There has to be something punitive for Christmas singing that doesn't punish me.
It's not my fault.
It is your fault.
Why is it my
I
fault?
mean, do you not hear the words that are coming out of your mouth?
I do, but they sound really pretty to me.
So anyway, at this point, Allison's going to try and find a solder pick, and then we're going to light Heather on fire.
That's fair. That's totally fair. I understand.
Okay, so when you're doing something like this, pick transfer, in my opinion, is the best way to do it. Pick transfer is not the easiest way to do it, but it is my preference. So when you're pick transferring, you're going to have a bunch of pieces of solder that you've cut and put on your solder board like so. You're going to light your torch, and you're going to focus on one piece of solder. Okay, I should have fluxed them. I didn't because I'm lazy, and this is what happens. They run away from me. See how that one just balled up? And then we're just going to scoop it up onto my solder pick. Now I'm going to take my solder pick, And I'm going to touch my solder onto my wire, heat my wire, and what's going to happen is my solder is going to come off my pick and stick to my wire. So I'm going to do that again. When you're pick transferring, don't let your pieces of solder touch each other because they will then meld and become one, which is not what you want. Okay, so there, that's pick transferred onto that U shape. Now I have fears because of the fact that I melted my camera last year. So I'm going to continue to pick transfer the rest of this, sorry, off camera, because I've got it set really freaking close to my work surface, and I can't afford to buy a new webcam right now, so y'all are just going to have to imagine the glory of this pick transfer as it's happening. I promise I will show you the end results. But yeah, I'm just really not comfortable doing all of this that close to the camera. Amy says, is this what it's like to be a baller? I guess so, Amy. This is as close as I'm ever gonna get to being a baller, so we're gonna go with yes. So again, easy solder. Hey, Corvus! Easy solder is what I'm using, and I am pick transferring it onto all of these pieces. And yes, I'm doing that off camera because I'm still terrified of melting my webcam because I did it one time last year. And again, I can't afford to buy a new one right now. So I promise I'll show you what I did when I'm done. Also pretty sure my staff is laughing at me. They do that. Okay, so what I have, scheduling murder. Well, you know, I wasn't scheduling murder. I was just scheduling setting Heather on fire. I mean, she could survive that. Alright, so I have all of these. Okay, it's so freaking dark. What the what? It was not this dark before when I was setting things up. Alright, let's see how that goes. Well, then it's, you know, it's just the luck of the draw, Heather.
All the same, I'm standing over here.
Alright, so now we're going to do this in phases. So phase one is the bezel cup is going to get soldered onto my accent piece. So that's going to go there. Duck and roll. It's like a duck and cover. Duck and cover. Duck, duck and cover. Which I guess is strangely appropriate on, you know, 2 days after Pearl Harbor Day. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, now that I've transferred that solder onto that bezel cup, I'm going to sweat it. Which means I'm going to just heat it until it melts. There you go. Now, here's the thing about sweating solder is don't get too enamored with the behavior of the solder. You need to stop with the torch as soon as it melts. Now I'm going to put that solder side down onto my eye element. And then I'm going to heat this whole thing until, or scream and run. Well, I mean, honestly, I don't know that duck and cover's really gonna get any more truck as far as survival than scream and run, so seems like it's one of those things that it's just like makes you feel like you're doing something. So we're gonna heat this until that solder reflows and bonds those two things together. You're gonna see that bezel cup kind of settle out in a minute. Once that solder flows, there you go. So it was a little bit kind of cattywampus because there's no room to anything in the streaming area. Like, I'm sorry, if there's an air raid, I'm just screwed. Or a tornado. But so are you sure though? Because you saw me try to do it earlier and you had to save me from an avalanche.
Well, okay, that's true.
So the bezel cup was kind of cattywampus on the metal earlier because of the solder on the back of it. So when the solder reflowed, it settled out, it leveled out, and now it is soldered onto our eye. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the back of my eye. There. I'm going to put a little bit of flux on there, and I'm going to sweat some solder onto there. Heather!
I mean, you could have been.
Heather is making fun of the fact that I knocked down a bunch of stuff in the streaming area with my ass earlier. Thank you, Employee of the Month.
I bought you sugar and soda.
Well, that's fair. Lori, okay, this was the, I did not try to set her on fire, Corvus. I threatened to set her on fire. That's not the same thing. And Lori, this is how my grandfather spelled it. Just saying. I know, but seriously, that's how my grandfather spelled it. I asked him to write it for me once when I was a kid, and that's how he spelled it. So that's the official Richard Geeson spelling of cattywampus, and I realized there's no Y in there. He was never able to explain it to me either. So now I'm going to sweat some solder onto this eye. And this one, I'm not going to pick transfer. I just took a piece of easy solder and plopped it on there. And so I'm just going to heat this until that solder melts. And I did flux that first. There you go. I mean, I don't really want you to go argue with my grandfather, Heather, because then you'd have to go to a different plane, and I like you right where you are.
Well, you're the one that set me on fire later, so.
No, I wasn't going to set you on fire later. I was going to set you on fire now.
Oh.
The setting Heather on fire portion of the stream has passed.
Really?
Yeah, no, that ship has sailed. So, now it's time to solder this all together. So everything's got solder theoretically on it. Okay, and this is why I had it so dark earlier, is because the camera is just not loving this giant white thing. And no, I'm not talking about myself, people.
You're not giant.
Well,
Definitely white, though. No.
I mean, it depends on your metric. But what I'm doing now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attempt to not completely destroy my camera, and I'm going to lay everything out that I want to solder onto this. So the thing here is all of these pieces have solder on them except for my back piece. And so they've all got solder on them, so now theoretically all I have to do is lay them out. Simple. Ha ha ha. And then reflow the solder, and I will have a beautifully constructed piece. I don't have a laugh track, but if there's a laugh track in your head, it should be going now. This is a complete pain in the ass. Complete and utter pain in the ass. This is one of those things that I talk about when I talk about preparation is, it's something nobody likes, including me, by the way. I am not this weird anal person who loves all this putsy stuff. I just love the results. And so, you know, you love the results, you gotta do the prep work, but it's a freaking pain in the butt. You know, I'm not trying to lie to you guys about that. Nobody likes it. But if you do it right, things will turn out well. Now, of course, I have the added handicap of freaking camera on the way. Also, this has no solder on it, so I need to fix that. But anyway, as a right-handed person, I really, really, really need to like figure out a way to move my camera to the other side, because this is just such a pain to try and do with. It's like playing Operation left-handed, okay? And I am not left-handed. I'm not even really ambidextrous. I am moderately ambidextrous because I've been teaching beading for years, and being able to do things with both hands is helpful, but I'm really not great at it. I actually did once have a woman tell me that she couldn't learn knotting from me because I wasn't ambidextrous enough for her. So yeah, that was a thing. Anyway, my point is I'm doing this off camera because otherwise it's going to take me 17,000 years. And also, this one piece of wire has no solder on it, so we're going to fix that. So, tomorrow night on the Beading Dreams stream is Freeform Friday. That means... oh dear. I'm giving Corvus ideas.
Oh no.
I don't feel comfortable with this.
That does seem like a bad idea.
Which, by the way, so Mandy, who is occasionally on the stream, Mandy Head, passed all of her PhD field exams with high marks, which means she is on the road to the hell of her dissertation, since she is now past the hell of her field exams. And again, this is one of those where it's like, people asked me when I graduated college, are you going to grad school? And my answer was, hell no, I just finished school. I'm done. But yes, so she's on the way. She is well on the way to being Dr. Mandy Head. I don't think she's on the stream tonight because I think she's probably gonna sleep for the next, 6 weeks solid before she starts working on her dissertation. But yes, that was very exciting news.
If she has a kid, she can sleep your Christmas.
Watch her.
That's fair.
Because she just finished her field exams and other stuff.
Fair enough.
But I'll tell her you all said way to go. Like I said, she's not on the stream. I just felt the need to brag on my bestie because she has way more balls than me. Because, again, I did not have the balls to do grad school. I was like, nope, done, finished. I've got the one piece of paper. That's all I need. All right, so now, Dr. Corvus.
You can force them to call you that anyway.
That's true. I mean, especially like there are professions where people will actually pay you to force them to call you things. Just saying. Wow, I think I might have broken Heather there.
That was awesome.
Okay, so now I'm going to solder all this down. So everything's got solder. I'm just going to heat it until all the solder flows and solders everything down. I'm going to have my tweezers in my right hand just in case something decides to go rogue. Okay, so here's the thing when you're doing this is you do kind of have to babysit it a bit, because if your wires are a little bent, you know, heating them is a good time to get them to make contact with your metal, and once you make contact with your metal, then your solder will flow and attach the things. But if there's not contact, it's not going to happen. There we go. So see, I just kind of poked that all with my tweezers to make sure that there was contact. Yes, the theme from 3-2-1 Contact is in fact playing in my head. Do be careful. Don't melt your wires, okay? I'm a pretty, you know, bad offender as far as melting wires go. It's another reason that I like my butane torch is because it's harder to melt things with it because it's not as hot. I want this to go over here. Oh, well, it's always lovely when your tweezers bends. I'm trying to heat you. I'm trying to heat the wire. So again, if you're not trying to do this on camera, it's going to be a little bit easier. That apparently is breaking off. And we're going to be fine with that. Oh wow, goodness. Okay, well that was a bit of a failure. Going on. Okay, so what I'm going to do at this point is this is just going to completely come off, and I'm going to have to make a new one. I'm not going to do that on stream just because of time, but this whole piece is just going to come off, and then that's going to get a new piece soldered down. But for now, there we go. So this is something when you're doing wire soldering like this you got to be careful of, is that the wire is really sensitive to the heat, and if you press on it at the wrong time, it's going to break, as you just saw. Alright, that's my little sun casting, and my eye. Alright, I think I've run enough heat in that eye that it's down. And then of course I do want to make sure that that's not stuck to my board. Alright, so here is my Hamsa pendant. So I've got a blank finger right there. If I had all the time in the world, what I would do at this point is I would make another one of these and I would solder it down there. I don't have all the time in the world because I do want to get myself and all of you all home at a reasonable hour tonight. So at this point I'm just going to take this, I'm going to drop it in the pickle. So pickle, what is pickle? Pickle is a weak acid solution, and what it's going to do is it's going to clean all that black crud that you saw on that pendant off of it, so that I can steel wool it, shine it up, and make it look pretty to wear. I use citric acid pickle. It's my favorite pickle to use because it's not. What are you dancing to? Heather's dancing, but there's
song in my head. I'm not
no
allowed to
music
sing.
playing.
I told you it was stuck there forever.
So people of the Beading Dream stream, I'm just going to tell you right now that as it gets closer to Christmas, we are going to get weirder and weirder.
So weird.
Because Christmas in retail is absolutely horrible. There's no way to varnish that up. It's awful. And yeah, and especially in a small business with a staff of 4, there's just no way to mitigate the awfulness of Christmas in retail. There's no breaks. There's no yeah, well, Corvus, we can talk about my opinions on that. But, you know, there's no breaks, there's no mental health days, there's no, like, I really need a day off from work, I'm just going to take one. No, not when you have a staff of 4. Everyone works, balls to the wall, the entire damn season, and we all wind up losing our ever-loving minds by the end of it. So yeah, it's only gonna get weirder on the Beading Dreams stream between now and Christmas. And then post-Christmas, you're gonna have the post-Christmas Allison and Heather are zombies portion of the stream, and then maybe at some point we'll recover for the new year. Maybe this is one reason that I should, you know, do the highlight reel. We can just do a pre-recorded thing for that week, because oh my lord, it's just Christmas in retail in a small business. It's a unique kind of hell. It really is. Just, if you haven't done it, sorry, what does your psychiatrist think is quirky?
My weirdness.
Oh, well, I mean, your weirdness is endearing, but if you've got Christmas songs in your head, I think that they should be burned out with fire.
Well, I like the Christmas songs, which is why I was dancing to it. That makes sense to me.
This is a long-standing thing at the Beading Dreams. It is well known amongst all of the Beading Dreams staff that I hate Christmas music, because to me it symbolizes all of the horror of Christmas in retail, which I cannot separate from, you know, the actual Christmas holiday, and therefore I cannot find any joy in the Christmas holiday because I've been in retail for too fucking long. So Christmas music to me is like the dirge of my slow and painful demise. Wow, ain't I a bucket of Christmas cheer tonight, y'all? Goodness.
We really are.
So anyway.
I mean, we've talked about the reason for the season, which is Pearl Harbor Day.
Heather is not wrong. The reason for the season is absolutely Pearl Harbor Day. So, everything soldered together. Granted, some of it's a little wonky. But once again, for anybody who's been around on a Beading Dreams stream, when we dealt with brass or bronze, there's a problem with my pendant. And the problem with my pendant is that it's copper. It didn't start out copper. This is where Super Pickle comes into play. So Super Pickle is essentially a chemical agent that will strip the copper from the surface of my metal. Now, why is there copper on the surface of my metal? Because, yes, this is a bit of an informational rant. So brass and bronze are both alloys of copper. Brass is copper and zinc. Bronze is copper and tin. So what happens when you solder and then pickle brass or bronze is the pickle cleans off all the oxides of the metal that aren't copper, and what you wind up with is depletion gilding of copper on the surface of your metal. You basically wind up with a layer of copper on the surface that is the copper from the original metal alloy. You bubbling? You are bubbling. And so in order to return your metal to its native yellow color, you need to chemically strip that copper from the surface. Now, can you physically strip the copper from the surface? Of course. If you want to sit here with some sandpaper and sand that stuff off, good on you. But however, I am all about the chemicals whenever possible. So this is a 1-to-1 ratio. Sharon, if you want to contribute new music options, we are more than happy to entertain any new music options. I unfortunately just have an irrational prejudice that is ingrained in my being because I've been in retail, oh god, for 25 years.
We do have a large variety of music.
We have a very large variety of
What other people would consider to be good music?
we have a great Christmas playlist. Heather has done a kick-ass job of curating a Christmas playlist that is fun, that is varied, that contains also, you know, instrumental music that's not specifically Christmas based, like, you know, and some fun
Jazz and blues.
jazz, blues, and, you know, things like Christmas Time in Hollis. in there. Like, she's done a great job of.
That is a Christmas song.
She's done a great job of curating our Christmas playlist. I just have an irrational prejudice against Christmas music because, again, 25 years in retail, at Christmas, and just dealing with like the most ugliest of people. Yes, I realize it's terrible syntax, but it's true.
No, I think it's the best syntax.
People are so kind and wonderful during the holiday season, and people are so just horrid and hateful at the holiday season, and unfortunately that second one tends to be what sticks in my mind. So yeah, unfortunately I just have an irrational prejudice against Christmas in general. It's nothing against Christmas. It's not about the music. It's just me. But we do not have Pentatonic's Christmas.
We don't.
I will say that the Mannheim Steamroller Christmas album I will never listen to again after the one Christmas where it was in the playlist. And yeah, no.
Well, that was before my time.
Probably that might have even been at the bead store I worked at in Houston. But no more Mannheim Steamroller Christmas.
We had it here because your mom insisted. But that was when we were doing CDs in the stereo.
Got it.
And now we have quite a lot more.
We do. Corv says she knows why the Grinch hated Christmas. Because apparently the Grinch was also in retail.
That makes so much sense.
I'm totally a Grinch. I am 100% Grinch-tastic right here. Like, no, there will be no mistletoe, no reindeer, antlers, nope. No.
You want to know the only reason I'm not?
Why?
Because I'm no longer required to wear a Santa.
Oh, Lord. Right? Yeah, and anybody who calls me Cindy Lou fucking who will be banned from the stream. Just saying. Okay, so what's happening here is the Super Pickle is stripping the copper from this metal like my Christmas spirit was stripped from me through all of my years of retail, and you can see that it's turning from copper back to yellow, aka bronze, and so I'm not probably gonna let this go through its whole thing for a couple of reasons. The first one mostly being time, and then at some point I do need to actually solder something back onto here. So what one would do is one would leave this in this solution until all of the copper and all of the black was gone from this. I'm gonna go ahead and take this out. Maybe? Get out! Alright, I'm gonna take this out and dry it off. Yeah, I'm sorry, y'all. Like, I am not your happy, chirpy Christmas elf.
I am, though, if you need it.
Heather can be your chirpy Christmas elf. I'm gonna be your sardonic, bitchy, grinchy Christmas gremlin. I am. Oh fuck! What an ASO clip.
Uh-oh. Probably something about Cindy Lou Fucking
Oh yeah, that's totally fair. Yeah, all right. Oh, that'll go on the highlight reel as well.
Yeah, no Cindy Lou is what it's called.
Oh lordy. Oh god. Cold blood. Oh my god. Oh lord. Well, resolute. What? Okay, so what makes a cake resolute? That's what I want to know. Like, what? How do you know is your cake resolute or not? Is your cake irresolute? Is your cake equivocating? What makes a resolute cake? Somebody tell me. Because Twitch obviously knows, but I do not. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, I'm going to go ahead and take my steel wool, and I'm going to steel wool this And it's not going to get very clean because I didn't leave it in the pickle long enough. And once again, time. So we're just going to call this the Distressed Look. So, had I infinite time on the stream, and what I'm going to do after the stream, not tonight, but at some point, is I'm going to go ahead and solder, and I'm going to make a new one of these. I'm going to solder it on here. I'm going to put this back into the pickle, let all this black crap get off of it, super pickle it, and then I'm going to put it in the tumbler to get nice and shiny. I am going to go ahead and set my stone, because I've chosen a hematite, which will take all of that abuse. So I've got my hematite. It's going to fit in my bezel cup. I've already tried it, so I just need to push it in there and make sure that it's set nice and level. And then I'm going to take my prong pusher, and all I'm going to do with my prong pusher is just push my sides of my bezel cup in and down against my stone. So some people prefer a bezel rocker to a prong pusher. I like the pusher just because the rocker always to me seems really awkward. I'm sure that's probably user error on my part, but this is literally, it's just a piece of square stock that's polished on the end, and then it has a nice handle that fits, you know, in the palm of your hand. So this is definitely something, if you're good at machining, you could absolutely make this yourself. Now once I've done the four corners, I'm just gonna start going around and just pushing everything in. So the idea of a bezel is that you have these straight walls and you have a domed stone, and then you're taking the straight walls, sorry Sharon, I just saw your comment. So apparently resolute means colored sprinkles. Love that. So this is just a hematite, Amy. So the thing about a bezel setting is you're taking something that's straight walls of metal, and then you're literally bending it and forming it over your stone, and that's creating your physical connection that holds your stone in. Because at this point I'm making, you know, the top of my setting smaller than the bottom of my setting, so my stone literally couldn't get out if it wanted to. And then the last thing that I need to do is I do need to make a hole so that I can hang this on something. I'm just going to do that with my hole punch. And I'm going to put my hole right in the center there. So just take my hole punch and screw that down. Oh dear. Alright, once it's gotten through, twist it backwards. And whenever you're using a punch like this, you want to make sure you twist it until your metal falls off the punch on its own. And that is basically my pendant. Now, once again, I need to do some repairs. I need to resolder this on. The hematite will probably be able to take the heat of the resoldering. We'll see how that goes. And then what I'm going to do after that is I'm just going to chuck this all in my tumbler so that it gets rid of all of this nasty stuff. And I am, of course, going to have to super pickle it along the way. But that, ladies and germs, people of the internet, is going to be our stamped, sawn, and soldered pendant. So thank y'all so much for hanging out with us on the Beading Dreams stream for this Torch Thursday. For anybody out there who doesn't know me, I'm Allison from Beading Dreams in Dallas, Texas. Of course, we are an actual brick and mortar retail bead store. We're here on Lovers Lane in Dallas, Texas, and we are open to feed your need to bead 6 days a week. We're here Monday through Saturday from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. If you're not local in Dallas, you can find us on this channel, twitch.tv/Beading Dream. Thanks, everybody. 5 times a week with complimentary tutorials. We stream Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 6 p.m. plus Thursdays also at noon. Live merchandise sales every Wednesday and every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. So tomorrow is Freeform Friday. That means I will be on this channel, twitch.tv/Beading Dream, and I will be doing, you have no idea what, I have no idea what. I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow, and I'm going to do something. And hopefully I'm going to finish it on stream, and hopefully it's not going to be a failure, though those of you who are regulars on the stream know that that's not necessarily always how it works. So tomorrow, Freeform Friday, you're going to see me, Allison, attempt to create a project from start to finish on the stream. Hopefully, again, hopefully I'll be successful, but you never know. It might be an episode of Allison Screws Up on the internet, and that is always amusing, if not exciting. But it's usually funny. So thank you all so much for hanging out with us on the Beading Dream stream this evening. I'm Allison. That voice that you can hear behind the curtain is Heather, and we will be back on this channel, twitch.tv/Beading Dream. What happened?
Nothing. I'm laughing at you.
Oh,
Your description of me.
oh, well, you are the voice behind the curtain.
I am.
Also, she has her own camera.
I do.
There she is.
Hi.
So we'll be back on this channel, twitch.tv/Beading Dream tomorrow at 6 p.m. with Freeform Friday. So everyone have a great Thursday night and have a great Friday day, and we'll see y'all tomorrow at 6 o'clock.